Warning! This episode contains mentions of and mental health issues. Viewers' discretion is advised. Good afternoon, everybody. Phoenix Girl here. I know it's been a while since I last made a video, but I've been pretty busy with stories and our projects, and also I've been dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety lately. But I figured that now is a good time as any to get back in the swing of things. So today's subject is gonna be Brenda Benet, who is best known as Lee DeWan Carmichael on NBC's Days of Our Lives, as well as being the wife of Bill Bixby. However, her story is a very tragic one, as you'll see right here. Brenda Benet was born Brenda Ann Nelson on August 14, 1945 in Hollywood, Los Angeles, California, where her family later moved to Southgate. Her mother was Leona Louise Nelson, and her father was Clarence Leroy Nelson, a Navy man who left the picture sometime before Brenda was even born. For most of her childhood and teenage years, Brenda felt awkward and self-conscious due to her complexion being somewhat darker than that of her siblings. Because of this, she often felt that she didn't really fit in with her family and would often fantasize about being adopted. There are also some varying and conflicting accounts of Brenda's childhood. According to a TV Guide article published after her death, Brenda would tell friends that she was adopted, while at other times she would claim that she was illegitimate and her father wasn't in the picture, and sometimes she would even say that her mother, a fair-skinned woman of Scandinavian descent, was so embarrassed and ashamed by her dark and ethnically pronounced features that she would hide her in a closet. Also, from the time that she was a very young age, she always wanted to be a performer and even took dance lessons, where her mother paid for those lessons by taking jobs cleaning and sewing. Then after graduating from Southgate High, she attended Los Angeles City College before eventually transferring to UCLA, majoring in languages. As a matter of fact, she was actually fluent in 4 languages: Spanish, French, Italian, and Greek. She was also a very talented musician who had the ability to play the piano, flute, and violin. Her first acting appearance was on the 1964 variety show Shindig, and later she secured a breakout role as Jill McComb in The Young Marrieds, which aired the same year. During this period, she also married her first husband, Paul Pearson, who was best known for the 1950s classic The Donna Reed Show, and would later establish a child actor support group called A Minor Consideration. Brenda also felt strongly about establishing her career on her own merit, explained, "I decided that I would be dignified and discreet. No I would be uncomfortable trying to be sexy. Anyhow, once you get started on that, nobody takes you seriously." However, that would not be her only obstacle on the road to stardom. According to Brenda, not only did she turn down Playboy magazine 3 times, but she also had to deal with being propositioned by producers and other movie television executives. "But I always say that I'm engaged. That saves everyone the embarrassment," Brenda adds. "Once somebody asked me to go with him to Palm Springs for the weekend. You do that once and you're tight. I also could have gone on somebody's yacht. I know girls who go on yachts and go to Acapulco for the weekend, but there's no feature in it." There are also times when Brenda would get passed on for roles for the most unusual reasons. "I've been called up for roles and they tell me I'm too pretty for the part. What they want these days apparently are plain girls. It's kind of unfair. Pretty girls have problems too. So why is it unbelievable to cast an attractive girl in a film about a girl who has problems?" However, in 1969, Brenda and Paul would get divorced, and Brenda would later move on with her new paramour, Bill Bixby. They eventually married July 4, 1971. Tragically, however, right before the wedding, Bill's father would die from a massive heart attack. Then throughout the rest of the 1960s and most of the 1970s, she would guest star in some of the most well-known popular TV shows such as Hogan's Heroes, I Dream of Jeannie, Daniel Boone, Benet's Love American Style, Wonder Woman, The Love Boat, and The Courtship of Eddie's Father, which interestingly enough will also star her second husband Bill Bixby. She even had a major role in the 1963 feature film Walking Tall, which also starred the late Joe Don Baker and Elizabeth Hartman, who would also tragically take her own life several years later. In September 1974, Brenda and Bill welcomed a son that they named Christopher Sean Bixby. By many accounts, Brenda was a devoted and loving mother, and even when continuing on with her career, Christopher remained her utmost priority. Being a mother's most challenging thing I've ever done, she once said. Christopher's so bright and sensitive. He's the joy of my life. I've never known anyone like him.
Okay, I want to know about the disciplinary problems in coping with an only child. When the child says, I don't want to go to bed right now, how do you handle it, Brenda?
Well, if it's bedtime, it's bedtime. I mean, it's not a question of whether he wants to or not. I mean, we have a particular rhythm in our household, and especially if it's a school night. That's just the way it is. Now, he doesn't have to go to sleep right away, but still, I mean, there are certain things that we try to have some kind of consistency just in order to keep our own sanity, you know.
Brenda does a marvelous thing, though, that she did early and taught me to use with Christopher, which is if he doesn't want to do something that he is supposed to do, we always give him a choice. All right, you can go to bed now and have so-and-so that you are depending upon, or you can not go to bed now, and this will be the result. What would you like to do? Well, good night. If you really frame it right, you know, and it's going to come after a while. I know there's going to come a time when he's going to go, how long have you been pulling this trick on me? But it works very well because if they have a choice, they feel they have some control over their own life.
Even Susan Seaforth Hayes had this to say in her autobiography, like Sands Through the Hourglass, that she co-wrote with her husband Bill Hayes. He was her joy. Days was her job. She was never confused about what was most important. Mommy and son built sandcastle together with trips to the shore to collect exactly right, clean, pure scent of fillet. She cooked wonderful treats, danced with him, adored him. But then by the summer of 1979, Brenda's marriage to Bill Bixby was in shambles as the couple engaged in a heated custody battle over their young son. As described in the book soap opera Babylon, Brenda had petitioned to the court to put out a restraining order on her soon-to-be ex-husband, preventing him from claiming any of their community property. According to her, he wanted to remove the furniture from their luxurious home in the Mandeville Canyon section of Los Angeles. Since the separation, Bixby had divided his time between a plush one-bedroom apartment and Universal Studios, where he was filming his TV show The Incredible Hulk, and a fully furnished yacht which he kept anchored at a nearby marina. As far as she was concerned, he was living as well, if not better, than she and Christopher were, and had no need to take any of the furniture in Mandeville Canyon home. She went as far as to tell the court, he's an extremely well-paid entertainer who could well afford to rent furniture. However, despite their acrimonious feud, the pair was united in their deep love and devotion for their son. Brenda had primary custody of Christopher. Bill was allowed to see him as often as possible. However, Bill did have one stipulation though. Christopher was not allowed to watch any episode of The Incredible Hulk because Bill was concerned that if he were to watch his father transform into the gargantuan green monster every week, it would end up giving him nightmares. Meanwhile, Brenda moved on to the next phase of her career, as she would then snag the role that would immortalize her forever in soap opera history as the evil, conniving seductress and super vixen Lee Dumont Carmichael on the NBC soap opera Days of Our Lives, the nefarious interloper coming between the mega popular and famed super couple Doug and Julie Williams. However, Brenda didn't have to just contend with irate and angry fans that were furious at the fact that she was trying to keep their beloved couple apart. She was also engaged in an intense and volatile feud with the show star Susan Seaforth Hayes, who played Julie Williams. Ironically enough, Susan and Brenda actually had a shared past that went back a decade. As Susan would later recount in her autobiography, we had been Deb stars together in 1962. Before the Motion Picture Academy gave awards to makeup artists, the struggling makeup artists and hairstylists union drew attention to itself by putting on a kind of Hollywood debutante ball, where studio contract actresses of promise were presented to the industry. This was all for publicity, but such stars such as Raquel Welch and Linda Evans had done it. You received a cute little Debbie, a crumbhead of a starlet type, about as big as a dumbbell. Brenda and I have posed in our long gowns and white gloves through many fall ops, and our friendship flowered. I had not plunged into steady soap work yet, but she was dancing on variety shows and I appeared in the Elvis movie Harum Scarum. Later, we worked on The Young Marrieds at the same time, and later still, our friendship soured over my mistaken judgment. She had a hillside apartment in the Cahoon Park I admired excessively. I was welcome to drop by, and in my moments of girlish emotional crisis brought on by clashes with my mother, who wanted more input in my life, Brenda would listen her cool way. A couple of times I had fumed and slept restlessly on her couch. Her rules forbade extra visitors, however, and my married men friends were verboten. The concept of home as sanctuary hadn't crossed my mind. I thought her no men rule was just territorial. When Brenda went off to ABC to tape one morning, I called my smarmy male friend, who I usually met with in an office closet. Brenda walked in on me in the most compromising position with this tired old Republican she detested. Susan, how could you? Now, Brenda had known all about this guy, but she made me feel dirty as a dump truck. She was right. How could I? I was ashamed of myself and furious at her for making a scene. The Republican era ended then, but I barely apologized to Brenda and saw no more of her until the day she sauntered onto stage 9 as Bill's new love interest. What a mess! I hated the situation and made it worse and worse by being cold and wretched to Brenda. I actually criticized her to her face on stage in front of cast and crew. Oh yeah, twirl your hair around your finger. That's terrific. That's acting. I was saying such things to Brenda while she was trying to do scenes. I'd gone completely crazy with jealousy and old regrets. I couldn't seem to get past myself, and I don't know how Bill stood it. Yeah, I don't know how you put up your dumb bullshit. After just a few weeks, I owed her so many apologies I should have stopped coming into work. Honestly, I don't know how you put up with her bullshit. Like, seriously, she was such a massive bitch during that time. It's ridiculous. She was such a massive bitch. She was such a massive bitch during the time. It's like, oh, man. Playing the role of a prominent scheming villainess also proved to be a very daunting task for Brenda. Whenever she would film scenes that would require her to throw tantrums and otherwise behave in a violent manner, she would often be left shaking and crying for hours on end. I've never done things like that, nor had the inclination, and I've never understood it when I've seen people act that way. I'm strongly opposed to violence, and I really believe that it takes something out of you, away from you, to do things like that. Unfortunately for Brenda, she was about to face even more heartache and tragedy. In March of 1981, she took Christopher on a skiing trip to Mammoth Lakes, California, with an old friend named Don Emmons, also a fellow actor. As Susan Hayes would later describe it, Brenda had said to her with a laugh, "The sandwiches are made, we're committed." However, while on the trip, Christopher, who had been suffering from a nagging cold, soon developed serious respiratory problems and was rushed to the ER. His condition was so grave and dire that doctors had no choice but to perform an emergency tracheotomy. However, during the operation, he went to cardiac arrest and died right there on the table, devastating both of his parents. Brenda took a brief break from the show to mourn her loss and returned just as quickly as she had left, maybe too quickly. However, despite this, she soldiered on and continued to learn her lines and film her scenes. determined to not let everybody down. On the inside, she appeared to be calm and accepting of her loss, while on the outside, she was in complete utter turmoil and distress. As Brenda explained in an interview conducted just 3 weeks before her death, she was reluctant to move out of the house where she once shared with her ex-husband and son, and she was determined to preserve the memories of the boy she deeply treasured with all her heart. Christopher's sandbox is in front of this little treehouse that we built. It took 3 months for us to bring that sand from Santa Monica. We hand sifted it a bucket at a time, and a bucket at a time we carry it down into the garden. It meant so much more than, say, telling the gardener to bring 50 pounds of sand and dump it. There are several trees growing in the backyard, one planted at the time of Christopher's birth, and the rest after succeeding Christmases. I can look at them and remember each event, each Christmas, the ornaments that we made together by hand. It's a way of reflecting upon and appreciating life, and watching the trees grow is very special. In many ways, not unlike watching one's child grow, the development, the changes, the seasons, the temperament. I lived on a ranch on the Mackenzie River in Oregon for several years, an experience my son and I both enjoyed. It was a very special time. I was not working, I was enjoying mothering, and he was not yet in school. For us to spend time in the forest was an everyday thing. We make up stories and fantasies there, have our naps there in the middle of the day, and so on. Then, as the Lee, Doug, Julie saga began to wind down, Susan finally managed to let go of her bitter resentment and envy towards Brenda, and decided to stand an olive branch to smooth things over. By now, Lee and Julie had scenes together, and one of them went so well I sent her the most beautiful orchid plant I could find, with a note enclosed to praise her wonderful acting. I knocked on her dressing room door. She had candles burning and a soulful bit of violin music playing on our little tape deck. And finally, I found the words to apologize. She was gracious and wistful, looking like a watercolor of a woman in her soft silk kimono. She was with me, but not quite with me. The 1-year anniversary of Christopher's death had just passed. Friends and co-workers also couldn't help but notice a constant aura of sadness around her. Brenda engaged in multiple romantic relationships, including a black co-star on days, and even allegedly having an affair with fellow female co-star. And even according to the TV Guide article mentioned above, she was also involved in a tempestuous and volatile relationship with a man named James Preston. This relationship was so violent and toxic that sometimes the pair would get into vicious, drunken arguments and even come to blows. Then on the very last week of her life, Brenda made plans to attend a party with 2 of her date's castmates, and a few days before her death, she called one of her favorite fan magazine editors to thank her profusely for a recent article that she had written. According to Joseph Mascalo, who plays Stefano DeMera on Days of Our Lives, Brenda has seen a change recently and appeared to be having problems. Something about her changed the last 3 days she worked, he said. She seemed very detached, but she had seen a change again the last day she worked. I sensed there was something wrong. On the very day of her, Brenda had a violent argument with her lover before she began drinking at about noon. About 4 hours before, she spoke to her publicist, David Kramer. She sounded very down for the first time in the 20 years I'd known her. She said that she was having a problem with a friend and was simply depressed. She then sent her personal secretary, Tammy Bruce, away to run some errands before she locked herself away in the guest bedroom. When Tammy returned to the house a short time later, she noticed that it was empty and the guest bathroom was locked. Police were then called, and one of the officers barged through the deadlocked door. There, on the guest bathroom floor, lay Brenda, with a .30 caliber handgun in hand and wearing a terry cloth robe with glasses. She was only 36 years old. Brenda's death sent massive shockwaves throughout the entertainment industry, as the cast of Days of Our Lives was devastated and stunned by the loss of one of their own. In the following weeks after her death, filming had to be stopped multiple times, as many people would often break down and cry right in the middle of a scene. Also, according to Bill Bixby's Incredible Hulk co-star Lou Ferrigno, Brenda and Bill were struggling to put their marriage back on track at the time of Brenda's death. You don't know how this is going to tear Bill apart, he said. They were still so much in love and had been trying to work out the problems that caused their split. Marilyn Rice, Brenda's public relations agent and close friend of hers for many years, also spoke to her shortly before her death. I was on the phone with her at noon, and she said that she was a little depressed. We talked for a while, and I tried to draw her out of the depression, but she said there was no problem, she can work this out. She also added that Christopher was always on her mind, and periodically she would start to get restless over his death. Lana Sanders, the actress that played Marie Horton, and her husband Larry Pressman, also held a memorial service at their home in Brenda's honor, as many friends and co-stars gathered to remember her and pay their respect. Josh Taylor, who played Chris Kosachek and the current Roman Brady on Days, and Bill Hayes, who played Doug Williams, also wrote their own poignant tributes to Brenda Benet on Soap Opera Digest. This following tribute is from Josh Taylor. Brenda she and I were very close friends. I guess about all I can say is that she was the kind of lady who just gave a great deal. There was no guile, no jealousy in her. She just cared a great deal, no envy. Those people are very few and far between, and I feel, I guess, angry, because I feel like she took something away. And the only reason she took that something away was because she gave so much. I simply miss her a lot. I wish she hadn't, because life is moment to moment, and it can change a great deal very quickly. But it was her choice, and it was our loss. I just miss her, and that's not going to go away no matter what I say. It's not going to change anything, but she was one of the people that whenever I thought of her or talked to her, she immediately brought a smile to my face. Now when I think of her, it's a sad smile. I miss her. It's something I've had to deal with before, and my anger towards her is something I'll have to deal with because it's not fair to her. All I can say is I hope the reasons she did it were realized by her. I hope she is with Christopher. I hope, but it won't bring her back. She was just very, very special, beautiful. God, I just miss her. It was a friendship that was only just beginning. She was something. I just hadn't been affected by someone's death as much as I've been affected by Brenda's. This next tribute is also from Bill Hayes. Is there ever a time when is the answer, when pain surpasses its own threshold, when a seductive song of death is sweeter than the capacity of life? The chilling reply is yes. Otherwise, there would be no not even a need for the word. Happens just often enough to remind us it is the situation for some, the final bleak option to deal with one's overburden. There is, of course, total disagreement on the moral aspect of with as many different points of view as there are religions, societies, and philosophers. Some co-sign the perpetrator to hell's eternal fires. Others respect the act as a glorification through self-sacrifice. But everyone jolts together in some agreement at the loss of a loved one, the sympathetic hurt, the deprivation and the frustration, and the realization that life has been snuffed out too early. Our lovely friend Brenda Benet apparently took her own life early last April. Of course, whenever it was early, too damned early. Brenda was the perfect actress, stunningly beautiful, talented, utterly capable of her craft, dedicated and responsible, and sensitive to the extreme. And there's the rub, sensitive. The best actresses are the most sensitive, in order to permit audiences to see into the depths of their private emotions, to discover choice human truths. The good actresses forego protective covering. There is no other way. Either you protect your soft center with a hard shell of inhibitions, or you bare your soul and take your chances. There has never been a hard actress. That would be a contradiction in terms, an oxymoron. There may be loud actresses, demanding actresses, inexhaustible workers, picky, tasteless, even hateful actresses, but insensitive? No way. And Brenda was an actress. I'm sure she was sensitive to the fact that she was admired, appreciated, loved, that she enjoyed close friendships with many, both men and women, that she was aware that she was considered abundantly successful. And yet those positive components of her life and career couldn't balance out on her scale of importance. The negative tree was just too heavily weighted. 3 years ago, when Brenda first came on Days of Our Lives, she still had hopes that her marriage could be saved. It could not. She watched the pieces come apart. She was not a backbiter or a griper, so she didn't talk about it. But Brenda and I worked together closely during her first 2 years on the show, and I say that Brenda was deeply hurt by the disillusionment of her relationship with her husband. Wounded, yes, but not killed. After all, she still had the wondrous product of that marriage, her 6-year-old son Christopher. When she spoke of Christopher, when he came to spend a day with her at the studio, when she touched him, talked to him, smiled at him, it was obvious that Christopher was the consummation, the reality, the treasure of Brenda's life, and it was beautiful. Love like that is inspiring to experience it. And then she lost him. With a jerking suddenness, he was dead and gone, and Brenda was embracing only his memory. Was she shattered by this? She didn't outwardly betray such impact. Instead, she consoled her grieving friends. She soothingly explained how Christopher had known he was going to die, described the ways he had let her know this, even detailed how she herself had premonitions that he would never reach his 7th birthday. No grief, no hysterics, no anger, no tears, and humanity. That torturous day of Christopher's death seemed to be swept under the carpet of fate. I would have expected Brenda to have been unable to control her emotions, let alone cover them. In retrospect, I wish she had screamed herself hoarse, torn the drapes, kicked and stomped and pounded herself to a frazzle, cried uncontrollably until exhaustion claimed her. Because it is my opinion that she bottled up all those feelings of loss and the unfairness of life, and the sadness and anger added perhaps a catalytic anger of guilt, and what if, and why me, and corked it up tight to put away in her pocket. But such feelings don't just go away. You must express them, face them, deal with them, and admit their presence, even if you don't understand their function, before time can work its healing magic. I honestly think that Brenda, for some reason, didn't face her loss and caught up with her, blowing the cork off that bottle she had hidden away. I believe that had she accepted her grief and anger and allowed the tears to flow naturally, her eyes would have cleared so she could see all the reasons to live now. She would have now been able to open herself to the caress of love offered by friends on all sides, and she would not have abruptly deprived the world of her own special brand of love. Many, many people loved Brenda. Not only her C actors on Days, and the producers and directors and crews with whom she worked, but also her soap opera family across the land. Ever since the stunning news of her death was made public, people have been moved to write words of sympathy to me, producers, to other members of the cast. They've sent condolence cards. Masses have been celebrated. Poems and songs and eulogies have been composed. It's been wonderful, wonderful, and terribly sad. We all wish we'd been in the right place at the right time to prevent her suicide. We're sorry for the anguish she felt. We wish we sent something that day or the day before and said, Brenda, I love you and don't want you to leave. Please don't do this. But today each of us is older and sadder, and we hope wiser. Perhaps we'll all be more inclined to say, I love you and need you to each other more spontaneously, not wanting to look for the look of panic that signals depression. I, for one, hope so. We loved you, Brenda, and we'll miss you. Even though it has now been over 40 years since her passing, her legacy still lives on in the hearts of fans as her performances are still remembered fondly to this very day. Even though she is no longer here on this earth, she will always live on in the countless TV and movie roles that she left behind. If alive today, she would be 80 years old. And may she rest in peace. Well, that's it, everybody. That's the video. Yeah, this was a very long one. I honestly don't know how many times I had to re-record the script over and over again, but I hope I did a good job on this video. and I hope it's worth it, because I've been working really hard to make sure it's actually a good video. But, yeah. If you like this video, subscribe. This is Phoenix Girl signing off, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.